Welcome to today's Deep Dive Learner. There is this deeply romanticized piece of advice out there. Like, if you are a brilliant baker or, a master coder or a highly skilled carpenter, you should just quit your job and start a business doing exactly that thing.
Right, turn your technical passion into your livelihood.
Exactly. It sounds like the great American dream. But, well, what if doing exactly that is actually the fatal assumption that practically guarantees your failure?
Yeah, what if being an exceptional baker is the very thing that destroys your bakery?
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're exploring excerpts from Michael E. Gerber's classic book, The E-Myth Revisited. Our mission is to uncover why most small businesses fail and, more importantly, how to build a business that works without you.
Which is so crucial because we are heavily conditioned to believe that understanding the technical work of a business means you, inherently understand how to run a business that does that technical work.
But those are two different things, right?
Completely different. The reality is that baking a pie and running a pie-selling enterprise are two fundamentally different disciplines. One requires technical skill, and, well, the other requires business acumen.
Gerber describes the starting point of this trap brilliantly. He calls it the entrepreneurial seizure.
I love that term.
Right. It's that fleeting, intoxicating moment when an employee looks at their boss and thinks, I'm doing all the real work anyway. I could do this better.
And so they open their own doors, entirely unaware they aren't creating a business of their own. They're just creating a highly stressful 14-hour-a-day job.
The carpenter becomes a contractor. The barber opens a barber shop. Suddenly, the technical work they once loved becomes just a tiny fraction of their daily life.
Because the rest of their time is swallowed by tasks they neither understand nor enjoy. They are abruptly forced to be, the accountant, the marketer, the leasing agent, and the janitor.
The passion project just becomes a daily grind of survival. So, if the person starting the business isn't actually an entrepreneur in that moment, who are they?
Well, the text suggests that anyone who goes into business is actually harboring three entirely different personas. They are three distinct people trapped inside the owner's head, constantly at war.
A three-way war.
Exactly. And the conflict stems from how these three personalities view time and control. First, you have the entrepreneur. This is the visionary persona.
Living in the future, right?
Yeah, the entrepreneur lives entirely in the future. They crave control over the unknown. They thrive on constant change. And they view the world as this blank canvas of endless opportunity.
They are the strategist staring at the horizon, just dreaming up the next big disruption. But then they collide with the second persona, which is the manager.
Right, and if the entrepreneur lives in the future, the manager lives firmly in the past.
They crave order and predictability. They compulsively cling to the status quo.
Yeah.
The manager's instinct is to go to the hardware store, buy little plastic bins, and meticulously categorize every single screw.
Just ensuring nothing ever changes without a documented reason.
Right. And both of those personas completely frustrate the third one, the technician.
Oh, the technician,
Mm-hmm.
the pure doer who lives only in the present. Their core philosophy is basically, if you want it done right, do it yourself.
To the technician, thinking isn't work. Dreaming isn't work. Creating spreadsheets isn't work. Only physical execution is actual work.
Yes.
Imagine a road trip where these three are stuck in a car together. The entrepreneur is staring out the windshield at the horizon, yelling to push the pedal to the metal towards some impossible destination.
While the manager is in the back seat, frantically organizing the luggage, checking the map, and logging fuel efficiency.
Exactly. And the technician is literally under the hood, trying to fix the engine with a wrench while the car is moving.
What's fascinating here is that they are completely out of sync. And the tragedy is that in the typical small business owner, these three personalities are drastically unbalanced.
How so?
Well, Gerber points out the standard breakdown is about 10% entrepreneur, 20% manager, and 70% technician.
Wow, 70%. So the person under the hood with the wrench is actually steering the car.
That's exactly it. Because the technician is in charge, the business is run from the bottom up, they have a tactical view of just doing the daily work, rather than a top-down strategic view of where the business should actually go.
And because the owner is personally executing every single task to keep the business afloat, their personal energy becomes the absolute ceiling for growth. This forces the business into its first distinct life cycle phase, Infancy.
In the infancy phase, the owner and the business are indistinguishable. You are sweeping the floors, you're balancing the books, and you're making the product.
The boss you used to work for is dead, but you've essentially become an even harsher boss to yourself.
Yeah, and you simply cannot spin all those plates indefinitely. The sheer physical limitations force a crisis.
Right, because the technician works constantly to keep things afloat, they eventually hit a breaking point. And that transitions the business from infancy to adolescence.
The realization that you cannot do it all yourself pushes the owner to seek help. Typically, they hire someone to take over the specific tasks they hate doing the most. Let's call this new employee Harry.
Okay, you bring in Harry to handle the accounting or manage the retail floor just so you can retreat back to the technical work you actually enjoy. But wait, isn't hiring someone exactly what you're supposed to do to grow? Why does bringing on a Harry ruin everything?
Because it triggers a massive collapse due to something called management by abdication.
Abdication, not delegation.
Exactly. Delegation requires a process map. It requires training, established systems, and a clear standard of what success looks like. The overwhelmed technician doesn't provide any of that.
They just throw it at Harry?
Yeah, they simply dump the work on Harry's desk, say, handle this, and sprint away.
You aren't giving Harry a delegation checklist or a standard operating procedure. You're just handing him a mess.
And Harry is likely a technician himself. He needs a manager to provide a vision and define the standards. Without a system in place, adding a person doesn't reduce the chaos, it multiplies it.
So Harry inevitably drops the ball because he was never given the system to catch it in the first place.
Right, and when the ball drops, the owner's trust just shatters. The owner panics, reaffirms their belief that if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself, and jumps right back in to take over Harry's work.
This cycle reveals that the business has just exceeded the owner's comfort zone. The operation got slightly larger than what the owner could personally control through sheer willpower.
And when a business hits that boundary, Gerber outlines 3 typical outcomes. The first outcome is retreating.
Getting small again.
Yeah, the owner fires everyone, shrinks the business back to its infancy, and just accepts being chronically overworked simply to feel in control again.
What's the second outcome?
Going for broke. The business continues to grow recklessly without a foundation until the entire structure collapses under its own weight.
Ouch.
And the third is hanging on for dear life, staying trapped in that chaotic adolescent phase forever, operating in a constant state of emergency.
To escape this suffocating cycle and reach the final phase, maturity, we really have to look at the businesses that broke the mold entirely. How do companies like McDonald's or FedEx do it?
They approach the concept of business from day one with a completely different operating system. The operating system of a mature business relies on what Gerber calls the turnkey revolution.
Ah, the Ray Kroc approach.
Yes, Ray Kroc and McDonald's. Kroc didn't invent the hamburger. He didn't even invent the first McDonald's restaurant. His genius was recognizing that his product wasn't the hamburger at all. His product was the business itself.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Your business is a product sitting on a shelf, competing with other businesses. You must work on your business, not in it. He viewed the business as a machine.
That's the core of the franchise prototype. Kroc realized that to scale massively, he had to build a business out of perfectly predictable components.
It had to be a system that could be replicated endlessly, functioning identically whether the restaurant was in California, Illinois, or Japan.
The objective shifts from creating a people-dependent business to a systems-dependent business.
Because if your operation relies on highly skilled, brilliant experts, it is entirely vulnerable to their moods, their whims, and their availability, right?
Exactly. Plus, brilliant experts are expensive and incredibly hard to replace. When they leave, the capability of the business leaves with them.
Which is why the franchise prototype operates on the rule of ordinary people.
Yes. You shouldn't need brilliant experts to run your business. You need brilliant systems that allow ordinary people to produce extraordinary, consistent results.
You build the system, and the system runs the business. The people simply run the system.
That's the magic formula.
So if the ultimate goal is to build this perfectly systematized franchise prototype, how do we actually build one? The text outlines a continuous, dynamic loop of 3 specific activities: innovation, quantification, and orchestration.
Innovation is the starting point, but,
Yeah.
it's not about abstract creativity. It is entirely about action. It is the process of finding the best way to do a specific task.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure, take a retail clothing store. Instead of a salesperson using the standard greeting, "Can I help you?"
Which almost always triggers the response, "No, I'm just looking."
Right. Instead of that, you innovate. You test a new greeting, something like, "Hi, have you been here before?"
Oh, that slight shift breaks the standard script. It invites a genuine conversation. But an innovation is useless if you don't know its actual impact, right?
Which demands the second step, quantification. Quantification is the introduction of hard data. If you change that greeting, you must track the results meticulously.
Like using a weekly scorecard.
Exactly. You ask, did that specific new greeting produce a 16% increase in sales conversions over the old greeting? Without quantification, you're just operating on assumptions. You have to measure the exact financial impact of every innovation.
Okay, so once you have the data proving your innovation is the undisputed best way, you move to the third step, orchestration. This is where you eliminate discretion entirely.
Right. If saying, like, have you been in here before, verifiably increases sales by 16%, you mandate that every single employee says those exact words in that exact way every
Right.
single time.
Well, wait, I have to push back here. Orchestration sounds incredibly robotic and honestly soul-crushing for employees.
Mm.
Well, if they hate being told exactly what words to say and what color shirt to wear, it sounds like a factory line.
It's a very common fear. But Gerber quotes Theodore Levitt to address this exact friction. Levitt says, discretion is the enemy of order, standardization, and quality.
So leaving things up to the employee is bad.
When you leave everything up to employee discretion in the name of autonomy, the result isn't creativity, it's chaos. You deliver wildly unpredictable results to the customer.
And I imagine it's stressful for the worker, too.
Massively. It creates anxiety because the definition of success changes daily based on the owner's mood.
The text uses a resort hotel to illustrate how standardization actually provides psychological safety, doesn't it?
Yes, the hotel manager operates entirely out of a red binder, the operations manual. It contains color-coded checklists for every function, yellow for room setup, blue for guest support.
Every single detail is mapped out. There's even a visual process map of the room on the back of the checklist, showing the exact order tasks must be completed.
So the employee walks in, makes the bed, places the mint on the pillow, sets up the coffee station, leaves the newspaper, and checks off each item.
And they sign their name at the bottom of that checklist.
Right. To sign it and not complete the work is grounds for dismissal. But because the system is completely unambiguous, errors are incredibly rare.
It doesn't crush the employee's soul. It provides them with a comforting sense of order. They know precisely what success looks like on any given Tuesday.
It provides fixed points of reference in an inherently chaotic world.
So what does this all mean? To implement this loop of innovation, quantification, and orchestration, you need physical tools and a structure to house them. This is where the organizational blueprint comes in, starting with the organization chart.
Most small businesses entirely ignore the org chart. They organize around personalities instead of functions. They hire a few people, say we all pitch in, and assume the work will naturally distribute itself.
Gerber uses the story of Jack and Murray's widget makers to show how quickly this fails. Everyone does a little bit of sales, a little bit of production, and a little bit of cleaning.
Until Jack tells an employee to prioritize production, and Murray tells that same employee to prioritize sales.
Because if everyone is doing everything, no one is exclusively accountable for anything. Client calls just fall through the cracks because everyone assumes someone else was handling it.
The alternative is organizing strictly around functions. You define the structure your business needs to operate flawlessly. You draw boxes for the chief operating officer, the VP of marketing, the VP of operations, all the way down to the sales clerks.
And for every single box on that chart, you write a position contract. That's writing down the exact accountabilities and standards for every single role. But I'm trying to picture the actual mechanism of this if I'm a solo consultant. Like if I am the only person in the company filling out an org chart with a VP of marketing and a VP of operations, feels like I'm playing corporate make-believe. Am I just doing this to feel official?
It is actually the most critical exercise a solo entrepreneur can do. You build the full org chart for the mature version of your business. Because you are alone, you physically sign the position contract for the CEO.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you sign the contract for the marketing VP. And you sign the contract for the entry-level technician. You put your name in every single box.
Which isolates the different roles. So when I sit down to do client work, I am acting strictly as the technician. But I allocate separate time to act as the VP of operations observing the technician.
That separation of duties is the mechanism of escape. You observe the work, innovate a better way, quantify it, and orchestrate it into an SOP template.
You compile those templates into an operations manual for that specific box on the org chart.
Exactly. Once the manual for the entry-level technician is complete, You hire someone, hand them the manual, have them sign the position contract, and you permanently step out of that box. You systematically replace yourself from the bottom up.
You're literally manufacturing the components of your own escape hatch. And Gerber outlines 3 types of systems you integrate into those manuals to glue the business together: hard systems, soft systems, and information systems.
Hard systems are the inanimate physical tools. Gerber gives an example of a physical lucite collar placed in a specific spot to solve a recurring visual problem at a hotel.
It fixed the issue permanently without requiring a human manager to constantly monitor it.
Then you have soft systems, which are the standardized human interactions. A prime example is the PowerPoint selling system.
Right, instead of letting salespeople wing it, you script the exact sequence of the presentation. You define the exact words used to identify the customer's needs and the precise phrasing used to present the solution.
Ensuring the customer receives the exact same psychological experience every single time.
And finally, information systems. Those are the data trackers.
The conversion rates, the inventory logs, and the daily scorecards. The information system exists purely to tell you whether your hard and soft systems are actually performing as designed.
It transforms a chaotic daily struggle into a legible, predictable machine. The org chart isn't just a corporate buzzword, it's the literal escape hatch for the overworked owner.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the ultimate realization is that the org chart, the manuals, and the systems are not the final goal. They trace directly back to what Gerber calls the owner's primary aim.
Right. Your business is not your life.
Your business is just a vehicle. It is a practice hall or a dojo designed specifically to fund and support your ultimate life goals. The systems exist to free you up to live the life you actually want to live, rather than serving the business until you burn out.
So let's recap the core journey we've been on today, learner. We started by abandoning the fatal assumption, that trap of believing that technical skill equals business competence.
We examined the internal tug-of-war between our visionary entrepreneur, our organized manager, and our overworked technician.
When the technician takes control, we hit a physical ceiling of energy that triggers a cycle of abdication and chaos. But the mechanism to break that cycle is the franchise prototype.
We have to treat the business as a product, working on it rather than in it.
By applying a relentless cycle of innovation, quantification, and orchestration, and documenting those processes in position contracts and operations manuals, we replace ourselves system by system.
The core takeaway for you, learner, applies far beyond the walls of a traditional company. Whether you are scaling a massive corporate division, running a small pie shop, or organizing a community initiative, relying on the moods and willpower of brilliant individuals is a recipe for exhaustion.
Relying on documented systems is the only sustainable path to true freedom and consistent results. You must design the machine that executes the work. That leaves us with a final, provocative thought to consider. If a business enterprise requires an org chart, documented procedures, and clear, quantifiable systems to avoid descending into chaos, what happens if you apply this exact same franchise prototype framework to your personal life?
Oh, that's a fascinating application.
Could you construct an operations manual for your own household? By systematically orchestrating your finances, your daily chores, and your personal life goals, you might finally liberate your inner entrepreneur to focus on the future. If you are still operating like the overwhelmed technician, frantically trying to fix the engine while the car is moving, it is time to put down the wrench, step out from under the hood, and start engineering a better machine.